My old man used to always say, when you get in the car, know where the F you going before you drive off. With that being said, let's get this bus started and let's get to rolling. Welcome back. On this episode of The Ride, we are joined by Lexi Brown, guard for the Seattle Storm, Wnba, forward for the Seattle Storm and the president of the Players Association, and Sophie Cunningham, guard, forward for the Indiana Fever. This episode is all about directions. I'm going to start off with Lexi Brown. In 2024, Lexi Brown was on the Gilbert Arenas podcast, and she spoke about Caitlin Clark coming into the league, and she was disrespecting Caitlin Clark right from the jump. She said all she did was shoot threes. That was it. She didn't see much. And then, the season went on, and Caitlin Clark went on to do what she had to do. Won Rookie of the Year, so and so forth. Well, now it's a different time, and directions and things have shifted in the league. Lexi Brown is one of only a few people in the WNBA that are under contract. A few players, Kalani Brown, Maddie Siegrist, they're the only ones that are really under contract going into the 2026 year. So the collective bargaining agreement will not affect these players. She won't be getting a raise. She'll have to wait until 2027 because she's under contract. So keep that in mind when every time you hear her talk. And since the season's been over, she's been doing a lot of talking. But the direction that these players chose in 2024 is going to cost them in 2025 going into 2026. So keep that in mind when you remember when Caitlin Clark, like I said, Caitlin Clark was the biggest chess piece on the board, and whoever had her will win the game. So, the Players Association needed her. Unrivaled needed her. Project B wants her. Everybody wants Caitlin Clark. But I want you to listen to Lexi Brown when she speaks about last year going into this year and how things have changed.
Game has gotten to a point where it's like hard to watch at times with the physicality of it. Like Gino Oriema actually, because my parents sent me this article. Gino said that the officiating has been really bad in the WNBA for like a few years. His direct quote is, "People can't get open, people can't cut, the ball handler is getting whacked every time they move. Listen, you always expect your best player to have a rough time. I've been through that and I've complained about it a lot. I don't blame the officials. I don't think it's the people actually officiating the games. I think it's what's either in the rule book or what's accepted as this is the style of play that we want. Because if they didn't want that style of play, they wouldn't allow it." Like, I don't know why all of a sudden, like, this over physical, crazy basketball has become acceptable in the W. Like, it was cool, like, last year at the beginning when people were like, it wasn't cool last year because we know what the narrative last year was about the physicality of.
Now, see, and you got to understand, Lexi Brown is basically a union rep as well, and she's also like a player rep in Athletes Unlimited. So she's an executive in Athletes Unlimited. Keep that in mind. You see how she doubled back when she spoke about the physicality. They like the physicality until it's on them. Now, Lexi Brown did a lot of talking last year during that season in Caitlin Clark's rookie year. Lexi Brown didn't play hardly last year because she was battling Crohn's disease, and she came back this year. She got traded from the Los Angeles Sparks to the Storm and was on the bench for most of the season, not really getting any playing time, but in like spare minutes at the end of a game, she would get in. After the season, she went on a tirade, dogging out the coach and everything, letting out her frustrations in her exit interview. But it was interesting that she said about the physicality, it was okay. It was okay. And then she switched it up and she said it wasn't okay. See, the physicality is basically on the players. It's not on the refs. These players, that's how they play. But the misstep in direction that they took was the physicality towards the player that was going to help them secure the most money that they've ever got. And that was Caitlin Clark.
The league. But I thought it also was a good thing to see like how physical the W really is and how it's just such a major leap from college to pros. But I think it's like gotten a little bit out of hand. And I think that's what's led to the injuries. I think that's what's led to the crazy fatigue amongst players. I mean, on top of playing 44 games plus the playoffs.
Mind you, they play about 44 games in college. If they make it to the tournament, make it to the national title, they play about 44 games. College season is about 30 something plus games, 32 games. So it's not the length of the games. It's the physicality between the players. These players don't respect the game and they don't respect each other. And that direction that they're taking is going to hit them at the bargaining table.
I think that they need to reel it in, and it's too late to do it now, obviously. But like
I will say, Aaliyah Boston.
What they're going to do, they're going to reel it in by getting some of them out. A couple weeks ago, I did a video where I asked who were the 10 people you would get out of the league. And a lot of you put comments, sent me messages with the people that you would get out of the league. The reason why I asked that, because when you're bargaining, a lot of times a bargaining unit and a company will agree to a certain amount of acceptable losses. They know some people are going to lose their job when they sign this new deal. Everybody's not going to make that money. For example, when Walmart a couple years ago announced that they were going to do the $15 minimum wage, when they signed that deal and gave that money, they also put in automation and also put in self checkouts. So a lot of people lost their jobs and that money was distributed to the other employees. Now the other employees are working harder for the same amount of money that the company's giving out on payroll. That's what's going to happen in the WNBA. There's going to be a acceptable amount of losses that are going to take place in this league. Keep in mind, everybody's a free agent for the most part. Almost upwards to close to 90% of the league is a free agent. It does not mean the league has to give you a job. That's the reason why if you watch the video about the seniors should scare the hell out of the WNBA players. Because one, that senior is going to come into the league. That foreign player is going to come into the league. And they're going to come in on a rookie salary scale. That's going to be slightly lower than the veteran minimum. That means they save money on payroll. Payroll is the number one expense for a company. Payroll and healthcare. That will get a lot of these players off payroll. A lot of the older players off payroll. If you're wondering about the max contract, every last one of these players thinks they're a star. So every last one of these players is going to go for a max contract. Now, Lexi Brown also said some more important stuff when she spoke about the bargaining. Let's take a listen to that.
I'm curious with the new CBA if, or I just see some correlation here between owners, front offices making these sort of decisions and not necessarily consoling their players, which is not just what I've heard from you, but a basis of what I've been hearing. And giving you guys that revenue share / more money would put them in a position to where they do have to answer to you more as players, because you're being invested in more as part of the league. And if you're investing a certain share of your revenue and you're a star player just alone, not even mentioning the rest of the roster, and you fire a coach they really love or you hire a coach they really don't want and they're unhappy, that becomes a much bigger issue. So I'm curious to see with the new CBA, and if you guys do get that revenue share, which I think you will, and I'm hoping you do, that if that happens,
The funny thing is, they think getting the revenue share will give them power when they already have a revenue share. It's the funniest thing ever. It's almost like I think a certain section of them do not understand their contract book. They don't know that they actually get a revenue share. I think a large majority of them don't even realize that they get that 50 split and then 25% of it goes to marketing. For example, last week, I didn't even make a video about it. Uh, Caitlin Clark, Kelsey Mitchell, and Ari McDonald were at a Lily event and they were speaking. And I was happy for Ari McDonald being at that event because if you look in their contract book says the marketing for the league, that 25% is set aside for certain players. I was glad that Ari McDonald took the opportunity to do and go to that speaking event and get that extra money. And I think in their contract book, it said you could make upwards to $300,000 just in doing marketing and events for the league. If you go back and listen to Breanna Stewart at the beginning of the playoffs, she alluded to the same thing. She alluded to, I can't market for the league. I'm not going to be able to market for the league because I'm getting ready for the playoffs. But I don't think every player knows that. And that's the reason why they scramble and run around the world trying to make money when they don't even realize it's built into their contract. They just have to tap into it. But I'm gonna let her finish. This is Mariah Rose. She's Jalen Rose's daughter. She co-hosts the show with Lexi Brown. So she's the one that was asking the questions.
Well, maybe it will be more of a coaching carousel because the star player will have more of that.
I think, and it's so interesting that you bring up that point because I do feel like it is a power struggle happening right now. Like I feel like for so many years we've just been like a ounce, a mini tiny blip of part of the WNBA ecosystem, which is crazy because the WNBA wouldn't exist without the players that play in it. And we've just been like just buried under all of this money, and you lose money and no one wants to see y'all, no one wants to watch y'all aren't marketable, y'all aren't this, y'all aren't that. And finally here we are, all of those things being disproven one by one, and the league is still like, no, we still want y'all to be at this tiny percentage of.
Most of the players in the WNBA are not marketable. You hardly see any of the players in commercials or anything outside of the WNBA. And that's the reason why Sophie Cunningham's on the bus today.
Everything. And it's extremely frustrating because they're not budging on it. They're really not. And it's every meeting that we have with the Players Association. And every meeting that we have, more players are hopping on because I think it's the deadline is in 4 days. So like,
now this was taking place before they signed the deadline. If you listen to what she just said, she said more players are hopping on. That means to me that the majority of the league is still undecided on which direction to go. That's the reason why I say the Players Association is basically unrivaled and been co-opted, and not everybody is on board with what they're doing. It came out of her mouth. She's a union rep, former union rep in the WNBA. And I thought that was an interesting point. That was pretty much the main thing. I'll leave a link to this video. That was the main thing that caught my attention when she said that about hopping on board.
We're not getting to an agreement in 4 days, but more players are like, oh, this might really, like, this is not good. And I think the momentum is in our favor. I think we are building more leverage. I think that we're all on a united front. And I remember.
She said united front, but just not even 15 seconds before that, she said more and more players are hopping on. You're not a united front if more and more players are hopping on. They would have already been on the bus if that was the case. Notice she did not say anything about we voted for an extension. So remember, Nneka said the executive board decided that.
Our last CBA negotiations was like, it was not like this. So, I mean, it's good for us because I think we do have a lot of people on our side, a lot of people supporting us. A lot of people are now really are not being as dense about, like, you still have like the random trolls who are like, you really doesn't make any money, da da da. But I really do feel like now people are really, when you get into the numbers and all the money that is about to be inserted into the league with that, especially with the media rights deal, I think now that people are now really just thinking about that in totality, I think more people are starting to understand, like, oh yeah, no, they're being really underpaid. And again, and we're not trying to get paid the same amounts of money. It's percentages, guys. Piece of the pie. Like,
that's funny. She spoke about the future, the money that's coming in, that's going to come in, not what's currently there. That's the part the players are missing. You you can't you can't get paid off of projections. Oh, in the future we're going to make this much money, so we're going to pay you that money today. That's not going to happen. But that's part of the problem that they're having in their bargaining meetings.
that's all we want. And I think they're budging a little bit, but like that revenue sharing, like it's just they're not coming up off that. And it's been
And the funny thing is,
it's so crazy.
It's not a salary number that you guys are asking for where it's like, I want to get paid this. I want to get paid what NBA players are getting paid. It's a revenue share. It's a percentage, which I find interesting because I always hear WNBA players reiterating that you guys don't want to get paid exactly what they're getting paid. You want to get paid your fair share, just like they're getting paid their fair.
They keep talking about the fair share, not realizing that they can't compare themselves to the NBA. The NBA is a complete entity, and the players are their partner. In the WNBA, you got the NBA got a share of the pie, the WNBA's got a share of the pie, and the private equity group has a share of the pie. You're not going to get a split amongst the three equal. You're going to get a split for the company that you work for, which is the WNBA. You're not going to be able to touch their other two entities' money. It's a hard thing for them to understand. You're not going to get a 50 out of each entity, out of each the three. You're only going to be able to split the 42% with the WNBA. That's it. They keep going in circles with this, and the more they talk, the more they're giving the ammo to the owners and letting the owners know these women still do not get it. But next, I want to talk about Sophie Cunningham. See, the direction is important. Sophie Cunningham gets traded to the Indiana Fever. They give up a first round pick. Understand that in the WNBA, they don't really care about first round picks. They don't really even care about scouting. A lot of the teams don't scout. So that first round pick was valuable and will be a nice complementary piece going forward. So they banked on hitting a home run this season and bringing in a veteran player like Sophie that could play defense and give that edge, that cockiness to this team. So they had good intentions with Sophie. One thing about Sophie's direction is a little bit different than Lexi Brown and the rest of the league. See, Sophie Cunningham is like that. You kind of like that old coach. He said, Herm Edwards. He said, "You play to win the game." Sophie Cunningham played the game and is winning. Her direction, while everybody else is hovering right here, Sophie Cunningham's direction is going up and up. Good Morning America, NASCAR, speaking about marathons, the Arby's, the Adidas. Sophie Cunningham's making money hand over fist. Podcast growing in numbers every week. Sophie Cunningham understood the assignment. She understood, hey, Caitlin Clark's in the league. We're gonna give her the business. We're gonna be physical. So Sophie's not excluded from that. That's coming out of her own mouth. She said that on her podcast. I've covered that already. So, but on the other hand, Sophie Cunningham also understood the financial gains by being in the spotlight on the Indiana Fever and primarily being next to Caitlin Clark. And she's capitalized on it and taking advantage of it. And that's probably one of the reasons why she is one of the most hated players in the league, as well as one of the few players that you will see going forward, because you're going to see her a lot. When she hinted about Angel Reese and the Victoria's Secret, Sophie Cunningham fits that mold. I would not be surprised within the next year she's doing Victoria's Secret, or another company will snatch her up and let them do their garment line. She's got the cachet now to do that. Another thing about Sophie Cunningham, you got to understand. Sophie Cunningham's 29 years old. She's looking for a max deal. Understand, the large majority of these players only have a short window. I tell you, my criteria is 32 years old, that check engine light comes on in a player's game. I know a lot of Indiana Fever fans love Sophie Cunningham. Sophie Cunningham's an older player. If you give her a 3-4 year deal, that'll run her right up until that check engine light. The thing is, you got Lexi Hull on the team as well. If you pay Sophie Cunningham big money, that means she's a starter. You're not going to pay Sophie Cunningham big money, and you have Lexi Hull, who is a draft pick, a player that you selected, you have developed, and now you're seeing the fruits of your labor. You're going to let her walk. One of them will have to leave. Both of them will be sought after heavily in free agency, but they're not going to be able to sign both of these players to top money. Remember, I told you guys, every player in the WNBA thinks they're a star. They're going to want to get paid like a star. When the CBA is finally settled and the ink is dried, everybody is going to go for max contract. That's the reason why they want that salary cap uncapped, because a lot of these players know this is the time to cash in, because I'm not going to be in this league long. That senior bus has just pulled up. Those seniors are coming. Those seniors are cheaper labor. Keep that in mind, folks. Cheaper labor, younger player. And in the podcast, Lexi Brown, to her credit, said it in this podcast that these teams are basically, all the teams for the most part, are going to be able to hit the reset button and build their teams from scratch, from a pool of veterans and a pool of talented, cheaper labor coming from college. That's the direction the league's going. And Sophie Cunningham, to her credit, she understands it, and she's striking while the iron is hot, building her brand, getting her brand up. Now she's getting to that point where NBA players are already at. NBA players become household names and are known. And the WNBA is slow to get to this process where they can make money and capitalize off of being on the court, off the court. Angel Reese is one of the few players in the W that can that can actually do it. It's only a handful of the players in this league that can go from court to off the court and make a lot of money. The majority of the league just can't do it. They've put too much agenda, too much lifestyle in front of their face. So nobody sees them. They see their agenda that they're pushing. That's the problem with the marketing with the WNBA. But shout out to Sophie Cunningham for breaking through that ceiling and understanding the bigger picture. I still don't think she'll be signed with Indiana. I still think she'll be signed with another team who will get a great player and get a marketable player. And that's the big point. A player that you can market. She can be a good 15-point scorer, 12-point scorer, get some assists, get some rebounds, get a few steals, and she'll earn the money that she gets in the contract that she's going to get and be a nice contributor on a team. Wnba, my goodness. I'm not sure what NBC was doing, but I'm pretty sure the players union paid for a spot to get her on TV. But I'm glad she said what she said. Now let's take a listen to what Nneka said. She comes out the gate asking her about the CBA, of course.
So you said the players are seeking, obviously, a salary structure that grows with the business. How close do you feel that you are to getting that? And what else are the players pushing for?
Well, first of all, thanks for having me today. This is another historical day in our union's time, and of course, in what we anticipate to be a transformational negotiation. So, about 2 weeks ago, the league had offered an extension, but at the time, we felt that the circumstances necessary for our agreement to an extension weren't quite met. But in the last few days, we felt that the negotiations had evolved, and so ultimately, the player leadership decided to respond to their request to extend the current CBA, albeit, yes, this is what happened last time, but we are in different times. We're seeing such a surge in women's sports, specifically women's basketball, especially in the WNBA. And so we want to allow more time for these conversations to evolve, especially as it reflects our priorities in this negotiation.
Now, she said they got the offer to do the extension 2 weeks earlier. They've been saying that the WNBA hasn't been bargaining in good faith. These ladies have been lying to the public. If you remember, now she did this video on October 31st. This was the same day she dropped the slideshow when she drew herself as a cartoon character with her arms crossed, demanding a lot of stuff. So if they got it 2 weeks earlier, on the beginning of last week, Aaron Drake said that the players, that she said that they basically were giving them the same stuff. And she said that the players would have to decide on that. Keep that in mind. See, one person is going this direction. The other person is going this direction. Their union is so fractionalized, they're not on the same page. So they squandered this 2 weeks. And in this 2 weeks, they were popping shots at Adam Silver, still popping shots at Kathy Engelbert. The Nafisa Collier thing came out. All this was going on during this time. And they had time to get the members the word that, hey, do you want to extend this agreement? They still haven't gotten to the players. If you heard Lexi Brown, who this interview that we just saw with Lexi Brown and Mariah Rose was during the same week last week. She said everybody wasn't on board yet. Some are getting on board. Some people don't believe in this union, but they're scared to speak up. Most of them probably don't even know what the hell to do, to be honest. But I just thought it was interesting that they had this agreement 2 weeks prior and could have got this out the way. Mind you, she said they didn't feel like doing the agreement because they thought things hadn't changed. But she never said what changed. Because even in her soliloquy on Friday, she said, we're still a long ways apart. We still got these demands that we want, the practice facilities, which she's about to go into right now. So let's take a listen to what she says about the practice facilities and stuff like that.
Give players room to grow with the business. It makes sense from a business standpoint, absolutely. Is that how it works in men's sports?
Yeah, so our priorities haven't changed. When we say transformational, we want a salary system that's tied to a meaningful share of revenue that we help generate. It's the same standard that we see in men's professional leagues. But along with that, and as these conversations evolve, we can begin discussing more of the items that are also priorities for us, which include better working conditions across the board, including playing and practice facilities, and then of course protections to honor the players who built the league, the legends of this league, while continuing to set up the next generations for success.
That's interesting. Before, it was in her soliloquy on Friday, it was the practice facilities that they wanted upgraded. And I agreed to that to an extent, because every team's not going to be able to pony up $100 million to build a facility like the Fever did, like the LA Sparks did. The play, now it's the goalpost keeps moving. Now it's the arenas that have to be updated. Mind you, the Atlanta Dream play basically in a high school gymnasium. There's high schools in Texas that have better facilities than the Atlanta Dream, and they're a professional team. Their arena doesn't even hold 5,000 people. The Dallas Wings, they play at a UTA, a University of Texas system school in Arlington. That stadium barely holds 7,700 people. They don't even sell that arena out. They're moving to a new facility to play, and they're actually getting a facility built, which the players aren't talking about. The Dallas Wings are getting a facility built not too far from where they're going to be playing in Dallas now. They're going to be playing at a larger venue, not the American Airlines Center where the Dallas Mavericks play, but they're going to be playing in a bigger arena, and they're building them basically a joint practice facility with the community and the WNBA players. They just announced that a couple months ago. I can link that in another video. So there's progress being made on the teams by the teams. These ladies are stalling they're stalling to get the old players paid. The old players. You're not going to get a retroactive pension for Sue Bird, Candace Parker, and so many others. Those players had their window to get that. Nor will the players, if the league came back and said, hey, would you want to give up some of your salary and defer some of your future earnings and your salary from your cut and make up with a retiree pension fund where the retired players can pull from, depending on how length of service and so forth? I guarantee you, if the league went to the players and did that, which I'm pretty sure they will do, the players would say, hell no. They don't want to give up any money to the old guard. Even though she said they built the league and honor the players that built the league. They won't give up a portion of their money and defer it to the older players. And I know that's going to come up in these meetings. I just find it interesting with Nneka and the directions these players are going. Lexi Brown, for instance, when Caitlin Clark came into the league, she tried at every junction on Gilbert's Arenas show to take shots at Caitlin Clark. When Caitlin Clark was getting her butt whooped on a court, it was okay. But when Caitlin Clark was taken from the equation, now physicality is a problem in the league. It's the directions you choose to go which ultimately decides your fate. And that was the wrong direction by Lexi Brown. Nneka Ogumwai, unrivaled Nafisa Collier, chose to not embrace Caitlin Clark when she came into the league. Nneka's the Player Association president. Not one time did she say she condemned the physical acts that were happening towards Caitlin Clark. Nafisa Collier at any junction did not speak out about the physicality that was happening to Caitlin Clark that first season. But yet at the end of that season, she offers Caitlin Clark a job in Unrivaled. She didn't offer her a seat at the table in Unrivaled when she was in college, like she did Paige Beckers, like she did Flau'jae Johnson, and like how she's done so many other athletes that are currently in college. She excluded the most popular athlete in women's college basketball at that time, the most popular athlete in the WNBA that came in last year. She blew her off until she needed her. She took a direction. Nneka took a direction. It was the wrong direction. Sophie Cunningham. Yes, she admitted, yes, we had an agenda to go at Caitlin Clark. At least I give Sophie Cunningham credit. She knew what direction would get her into the spotlight, and now she's a budding star. Sophie Cunningham knew, yeah, we wanted to give the rookie a message, but I also understand it's a business and she can help me grow my brand. So for that, Sophie Cunningham took the right direction and is still moving in the right direction. It's amazing that Caitlin Clark is the most powerful piece on the board and never has to make a move. Can just sit there and just say no. That's how powerful Caitlin Clark is. No to Unrivaled. No to coming out and vouching on behalf of the Players Union. No to Project B. No to this. At every stop, Caitlin Clark can just say no. Because at any point, Caitlin Clark understands, and most fans know, 90% of the people that watch the WNBA watch the WNBA because of Caitlin Clark. So with that being said, everybody at the table currently bargaining knows the biggest chip in the game is Caitlin Clark. The needle moves with Caitlin Clark. It's no other player. Caitlin Clark can always, whatever direction Caitlin Clark goes, money's going to follow, fans are going to follow. The ultimate chess piece calls all the shots, and it is Caitlin Clark. And she's going to always go in the right direction. But leave your comments below, like, share, and subscribe. And until next time, peace.